Kate Mila Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. Welcome back. It's our book, and I only had the one video this weekend for the book. We finished it, and I kind of set the bar high, and I knew you guys would like another hour or so, and I don't have another hour, but I do have a topic. I thought maybe I'll do a little retrospective of Erich von Daniken because he recently died. He died. Did I write it down? I didn't write it down. He died a couple weeks ago. And that was sad. He was in his 90s, and his books were absolutely epic. I think they set the standard for, he wrote The Chariots of the Gods. And from that came Ancient Aliens and all the other stuff since then. Zachariah Sitchin's books, on the Sumerian mythology. And I think he was good friends with Paul Wallace. And he was a very interesting person. He was really well educated. And, but he had a very colorful life. I started researching it and I thought, I don't think I want to cover this. This is too touchy. And then I decided, you know what? Let's just be transparent and talk about it and see what we get. So let's talk a little bit about Erich von Daniken. He was born April 14th, 1935. Erich Anton Paul von Daniken. He was born in Switzerland. He was a Roman Catholic. Went to Jesuit schools. He went to really ritzy private Jesuit schools. But while he was still in school, he rejected the church's interpretation of the Bible. From the very beginning, he was interested in astronomy and flying saucers and anomalous stuff in the sky right away when he was young. I think that's important. When he was 19, he got in trouble. He got a suspended sentence for theft. It wasn't anything, I think, very important. And this sort of set a pattern for a while in his life. He's very controversial because of it. He's controversial because of the books he wrote, the topics, but also about some of the events in his life. And I don't know what to make of it. I'm hoping that maybe I can get together with Deborah Lupien and we can find out. He became a hotel apprentice and eventually he stopped doing that and he moved to Egypt. In December of 1964, he wrote an article for a German-Canadian magazine, and the article was called, "Were Our Ancestors Visited by ETs?" And keeping in mind that in 1964, this was not the mainstream popular conversation that it would be today. He got in trouble in Egypt. He got a 9-month conviction for fraud and embezzlement on some jewelry thing that happened in Switzerland. I didn't get details, so I couldn't find details. But he got released, and after he got released, he became the manager of a hotel in all places, Davos in Switzerland, which is where they just had the World Economic Forum that we've been talking about so much. So he wrote Chariots of the Gods, and he had trouble finding a publisher. Go figure. But finally, he got it published, but he had to rework it a lot. And he got help with reworking it. The editor that helped him, he had kind of a questionable background, this editor. He had a Nazi background. He worked for a Nazi newspaper. And they hired him from the publishing company to clean up von Daniken's book. So keeping in mind, so this was 1964-ish. So it's been a while since the war, give or take 20 years since the war. So there were a lot of people still around who had been part of the Nazi Party. And does that mean anything? Probably not. I don't know. It's hard to say. In March of 68, he met with widespread interest when this book came out. So took him a while to get it out there, and it became a bestseller right away. But then he got arrested again for fraud. He was taking money and from the hotel loans that he was planning to pay back in order to travel to research the book. So this had happened before the book came out. He was accused of having a playboy lifestyle. So I'm wondering how much of the controversy around him was more about his lifestyle choices. You know, was he, they're calling him a playboy. Was he sort of not buttoned up the way the Catholic Church in Switzerland was probably very buttoned up? I'm circling around topics. Anyway, he served a year in jail and repaid all of his debts with the money from the book. And he also got time to write The Gods from Outer Space while he was in prison. All in all, it worked out very well for him. He began the whole ancient astronauts theory and said that certain archaeological artifacts are products of ancient technology. And and he makes references in his writing to the mention of ancient space contact in scriptures, like Paul Wallace does. And I'm sure that's a lot of what they had in common, was they saw that similarity. A lot of his ideas, people like to say, oh, that wasn't original. You know, he stole that idea from this guy. He stole it from that guy. You know, Salk and Sabine both came out with polio vaccines at the exact same time. They didn't work together. It's one of those weird coincidences or synchronicities that often happen. So I don't know. I'm reserving judgment because I loved his books. So he had ideas similar to Carl Sagan and a guy called Shklovsky. And earlier works that others had suggested that kind of danced around the notion of ancient aliens. He was accused through the years of being kind of loose and careless about attributions. You know, he didn't say where he got stuff. He got accused of making false claims about trips he took to verify archaeology or whatever. But no one has ever really proven that anything he talked about is wrong, and nobody has ever proven that anything he did was stolen from anybody. Several archaeologists have tried to debunk his books, but they still remain popular. They still remain in print. He wrote 33 books. Can you imagine? And despite lots of effort on the part of mainstream science and archaeology, nobody has ever proved him right or wrong. I mean, it's just still the theory that's out there, but he certainly tickled the interest of the public and got the notion questioning ancient mythology and scriptures, looking at them from a different perspective, thinking about visitations from other planets to Earth as actually potentially real. And he pointed out certain artifacts that might support that belief. So I think it's interesting that he's so controversial. Is he controversial because people didn't like what he had to say? I don't know. So let's do a Celtic cross and see what we can learn about Erich von Daniken's life. So at the heart of this, I think this kind of does my heart good. At the heart of this, we get the Three of Cups, and crossed by victory, the Six of Wands. It's like he sort of karmic destiny for him. What he did would be well received, and he would be really good at it. It's sort of an inevitability about his life and his work. And in the atmosphere above it, we get the Ace of Wands, taking on a project, acting on the project. His work is, how do I say this? His work was the meaning, the purpose of his life here, was this topic that he raised and the controversy that he drew attention to it. And that was his purpose. At the foundation, we get the Page of Cups reversed. Not always well received. But that was part of the attraction. I get the feeling that the controversy around him drew attention to him. Not only the topic of what he wrote about, but the things that happened in his life. All made people pay attention, and it wasn't the issue of what he did. It was the fact that he provoked conversation and debate. That was what he did for all of us. He was not afraid to look far into the future, look into other worlds, and look into other times. He had a vision, kind of a visionary. And it wasn't about the money. This is what's so interesting, because when you read about his life and you read about the fraud and the checks and the embezzling, and then he made so many books and he became wildly famous and I'm sure wealthy. That wasn't the point. I mean, it was nice. I'm sure he wouldn't turn his nose up at it. But his life served a purpose. It was to get people looking into these topics, to make them talk about them. You're not interested in ETs or chariots of the gods or ancient aliens. Maybe you want to talk about this author who's a little sketchy. That served a purpose. So he got a lot of insults. This is him. He suffered a lot of ridicule and criticism and bad choices and a lot of pain around his success. Interesting. And once again, not so much about the material gain. The material gain was okay. We get the King of Pentacles. This is somebody who's adept in the material world, successful in business, successful in whatever project he undertakes. Kind of the to borrow from Seinfeld, the master of his domain. He had this gift, and this gift was to attract attention, bring the subject matter into the forefront of people's notions, make us notice it. But more than that, force people to look at it as controversial, get people to talk about it, make us elevate our awareness. And I almost feel like this was some sort of karmic choice that he made, that his life, this would be the purpose of his life, that it would involve suffering and difficulty for him. It wasn't always easy. He was the object of ridicule. He was in trouble. He got a lot of accolades and he got respect and he made money, yes, but it wasn't smooth sailing. And I think that he made that choice. He decided that that would be his purpose in this lifetime, because it opened the door to the conversation. It got people thinking. Let's do a couple of clarifiers on that outcome. I'm interested to see what we can get. The Five of Pentacles, it's like the Nine of Swords. Both of them are about suffering. The Two of Swords again. Look at this. This is remarkable. The Two of Swords, we get the Nine of Swords and the Five of Pentacles. Both about enduring pain and difficulty, hardship. This was a choice. He made this choice to come here and go through that and shine a spotlight on a topic that's really important to all human history and humankind, that didn't get taken seriously, that was ignored. And he was willing to do that one way or the other, through the art of his writing or through the controversy of his bad behavior. So that's very interesting. I would not have thought that. So now what can we ask about him? Does he have a message for us? Okay, so what is his message? The Six of Swords reversed. It's about being stuck in not the best place, and it's crossed by the moon. I feel the message here is that we're not making the progress we need to make because we don't know the truth about things. Truths are being hidden from us and lies are being told to us, that we're not making progress because we don't have the real adequate information. So what is that information? Well, this is interesting. In the atmosphere of the Lovers, at the foundation, the High Priestess, there is, what's the word I want? There's concern. There's compassion for us, above us. And at our foundation, we have the wealth of ancient knowledge, of wisdom, hidden knowledge. There's a lot of mention here in the moon and the High Priestess of occulted knowledge, things that we should know that are either kept from us or we haven't figured out ourselves. And I think that speaks to why he wrote the books that he wrote, why they were so popular, because we need to know these things and we haven't paid attention. Well, he got our attention, that is for sure. The Seven of Swords, getting away with things, underhandedness. So I think he had this problematic youth. This was in the recent past. He had this kind of bad boy youth, and when he put his book out, it attracted attention, and people were predisposed to raise an eyebrow and think, well, who's he trying to fool, right? Or we don't believe what he has to say because look at his reputation. So how can you trust him? You can't trust the things he's writing about are in any way possible. But it got the conversation going. It got people interested. It became a controversy. It's like Harry and Meghan going on television begging for privacy. Is that really what it's about? So in the near future, once these things are revealed in his books, we get the Four of Pentacles. He had a pretty good quality of life, I'll say that much. He was protective, is that the right word? He was defensive of what he believed, what he talked about. about the relationship between humankind and other places in the cosmos. He had that sense of, I'm sticking to my story. This is as real as it gets. Page of Cups. I get the feeling of a soul that had compassion for humans and wanted people to be armed with the knowledge that they had been overlooking, and karmic choice to come here and provide that knowledge out of a sense of duty to humankind. And in the environment of the King of Cups, he was actually a very loving and compassionate person. He wasn't a mean person or an evil person or a bad person. And then we get the Queen of Pentacles in the place of hopes and fears. I think this is hopes. The Queen of Pentacles, you know, it's about success, but it's about success from a place of feminine energy, maternal energy, a desire to help humankind. And at the end of this, to the outcome, we get the Emperor and the Four of Wands, which to me talks about prevailing institutions and structures. And I want to do a couple of clarifiers about that, because I think what he had to say challenged prevailing structures, institutions, the way things are, bringing doubt upon what we've been taught and told by the government, the military, academia, because they want to keep control of us. The Emperor card. Let's look at a couple of the Three of Cups again. Maybe I didn't shuffle well enough. No. The Queen of Swords. This comes from a place of intellectual honesty, truth, intelligence. I don't think this was a sham or fraudulent. And once again, the Four of Wands as the outcome. I think this is a challenge to prevailing institutions, and in a good way. I mean, this is good news, and it's shaking them up, but it's shaking them up with intellectual honesty. So I think he was a soul whose time had come and whose purpose was to nudge humanity into a better awareness of our relationship with the cosmos. That's what I'm getting. Now I'm going to have, let me rephrase that. I'm going to ask Deborah Lupian if we can do him when we get together next time. I think that would be very interesting. So sorry, this is short. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the book. If you have questions, let me know. And I've got a book all ready for next week. It's going to be pretty interesting. So in the meantime, Slanka Foil, Slancha.